It's day 13 of the US-Israel war with Iran. Over the next 10 minutes or so, we'll bring you our daily briefing with all you need to know and the key updates on the conflict. More cargo ships are attacked in the Gulf as Iran's new supreme leader vows to keep blocking the vital shipping channel, the Strait of Hormuz, in his first public message. 2 tankers were hit near Iraq and a container ship was struck near the UAE. Inside Iran, Israeli strikes continuing in what they've described as a new stage of the war. Iranian officials say more than 1,300 people have now been killed. And in the Lebanese capital Beirut, it was the heaviest night of bombing yet by Israel as Hezbollah launched more than 200 rockets back across the border. Well, more on those latest strikes in a minute. But first, we've heard from Iran's new supreme leader for the first time. Mojtaba Khamenei has not been seen in public since succeeding his father. His words were read by an announcer and gave no clues about his health, despite some reports claiming he was injured. The message said Iran would avenge the blood of its martyrs and continue to close the Strait of Hormuz.
Our aim is actually to make them fail in a very regrettable way. The enemy is actually very vulnerable. They cannot open any new fronts, and we are going to open new fronts against them if deemed necessary.
We'll get analysis of that message from Lise Doucet shortly, but first, the economic impact of the war in Iran continues to be felt around the world as 3 more cargo ships are attacked in the Gulf. 2 oil tankers were struck near the city of Basra in Iraqi waters, and the 3rd vessel was attacked closer to the Strait of Hormuz near the United Arab Emirates. In Dubai, a high-rise building was hit by an apparent drone attack. And in nearby Oman, a drone strike on oil facilities forced operations to be suspended at the port of Salalah. Well, in a moment, we'll be live in Dubai. But first, Ben Chu from BBC Verify looks at the latest strikes and the economic consequences.
Here's the approximate location of 18 ships, 10 tankers and 8 other commercial vessels reported to have been hit or the subject of an attempted attack in the region since conflict began on the 28th of February. The dots are based on reports from maritime bodies, and we've visually verified some of them, but this gives a sense of how broad the area of danger is for shipping. We've reported strikes deep into the Gulf, off the coast of Iraq and Kuwait, and also here in the Gulf of Oman. Though this is the most crucial area, the Strait of Hormuz, which is just 24 miles wide at its narrowest point. Now, here we can see traffic through the strait on the 27th of February, the day before the first US and Israeli strikes on Iran, and compare it with the traffic on the 12th of March. And you can see a massive drop in daily ship movements. As to why this matters for the wider world, bear in mind that 1/5 of the world's consumption of oil and petroleum products pass through this narrow waterway, around 20 million barrels a day.
Let's speak to our correspondent, Nick Beek, now, who's in Dubai. Nick, on social media, there have been lots of questions about the ships that were hit today. Tell us more about what's happened in the Gulf and also in Dubai, where you are.
Well, in the Gulf, Mariam, first of all, there were 3 more attacks on ships. This brings to 16 the number of reported hits on vessels since the war started. The most significant was just off the coast of Iraq. And what happened there was members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps filmed what they said was the attack. There was a huge explosion. This was in the dead of night. The crew had to be moved off. We were told that 1 person was killed. Huge damage to that cargo ship. So Iran continues to hit out, trying to strike vessels, also oil supplies and other sort of depots right around the region. In terms of what happened here in Dubai, where we are, there was this footage earlier today of a UAE military helicopter taking out a drone in view of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest structure in the world. Earlier there was an attack. A drone managed to get through and it hit a residential skyscraper, a really tall building. No one was injured, but you could see the impact from it. Part of the side of the building was gouged out. And so these attacks keep on coming. The government here in the UAE says it's doing all it can to keep people safe. But I think what we've seen, Mariam, is that Iran continues to attack at sea, on land and by air. And Donald Trump is saying that he's ready to declare victory. He's said that a few times now. But the reality is Iran is continuing to hit back. It's inflicting pain on the Americans and, crucially, on their allies in the Gulf. These countries who are now right on the front line of this war, a war, of course, that Mr. Trump started.
Nick, thank you. Well, Israeli airstrikes have continued across Lebanon as Hezbollah fired dozens of rockets across the border in an apparently coordinated attack with its Iranian allies. This is central Beirut, where the Israeli military says it's begun a new wave of strikes today. It follows a heavy night of bombing across the capital. Lebanon's health ministry said at least 8 people were killed in an attack on the city's seafront area. Our correspondent, Wira Davis, has more.
This is the third time that, without warning, Israel has struck a site, a target, outside the designated exclusion zone of South Beirut. Twice in hotels and now hitting a car on the Beirut seafront. Another targeted assassination. Israel hasn't yet commented, but the area was packed with people displaced by the war, sleeping in shelters, assuming they were safe.
We were sleeping here peacefully, but then woke up in panic to an explosion. People said a strike had happened. Then we went back to sleep thinking the targeting was over. But then a second strike hit.
A couple of other developments to bring you today. The Defence Secretary, John Healey, has confirmed British forces based in Iraq shot down 2 Iranian drones fired at a Western coalition military base in Erbil overnight. A number of US troops were injured as some drones hit the base at Erbil, which is the capital of the northern region of Kurdistan, but there were no British casualties. President Trump has warned Iran's football team that their life and safety would be at risk if they took part in the upcoming World Cup in North America. His comments came 2 days after he told FIFA's chief the Iranian players would be welcome despite the war. In a post on Truth Social, he said, "I really don't believe it's appropriate that they be there for their own life and safety." An update now on the strike on a girls' school in Iran at the start of the war that Iranian officials say killed 168 people, including around 110 children. Well, Democrats in the US Senate have written to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth demanding answers about the strike. US media has reported that military investigators believe American forces were likely responsible, but have not reached a final conclusion. Donald Trump has said without citing evidence he believes Iran carried it out, despite video showing a US Tomahawk missile hit military base near the school. The Pentagon has said it is investigating. Well, the strike, if a US role was to be confirmed, would amount to one of its worst single cases of civilian casualties in decades of US conflicts in the Middle East. Inside Iran, the UN says up to 3.2 million people are temporarily displaced, with most of them fleeing from urban areas to seek safety. US-Israeli strikes are continuing. In the past 24 hours, they've been zeroing in on national infrastructure and security forces. This footage released by the US shows strikes on Iranian aircraft. Rescuers have been combing through the rubble from an airstrike in Tehran. Iran's oldest bank has been targeted, along with street checkpoints of the Basij, a volunteer militia that has suppressed protests. BBC Persian has gathered messages from Iranians inside the country, which have been voiced up by our colleagues.
My stomach has been messed up. I have diarrhea and vomiting. Every time they hit, I get a headache, which happens quite frequently.
I've been on my period for 10 days straight now. I wanted to go out today, but heard the explosions and stayed at home in my bed.
On the 13th day of the Iran war, some of the most searched questions have been about the first statement from the new supreme leader and also about how this war might end. To help me answer some of them is our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette. And Lise, there were lots of comments across the BBC social media channels after that message from the new supreme leader. How significant was it?
I think the fact that it took place at all is the most significant part of it, Mariam. People have been asking, most of all Iranians, like, where is the new supreme leader? That the reports were swirling that he had been injured in those first attacks that Saturday morning on February the 28th when this war started, which killed his father, his mother, his wife, and many other of his relatives. So I think pressure must have been mounting on Iran's leadership to give some sign of life. So that statement was put out, but Iranians and the rest of the world still haven't seen him. They didn't hear his voice. And there is speculation that even this statement could have just been written in his name. And what did he say? Well, he confirmed what everyone expected, which is that this was a message of defiance. The war will go on. And a message of continuity. He will avenge the deaths of his family members, most of all his father, the late Ayatollah Khamenei, as well as the many others killed. And he mentioned specifically the children in the school.
And consistently, Lise, people on TikTok are asking about Donald Trump's strategy and the motivations in this conflict. What are they?
TikTokers ask good questions, don't they? And that is still one of the biggest questions hanging over this war. Why did President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu start this war, and where is it going to end? And the question is important, and I'm sure TikTokers, like the rest of us, are confused because President Trump gives a different version of his end game every day. Sometimes he talks about the complete collapse of the regime, so regime change. Sometimes he talks about wanting to, well, he used to talk about wanting to choose the next leader, which of course he didn't have a say in. So that's and suggested he just wanted a change in the regime like he did in Venezuela. But Iran is so different from Venezuela. But he does keep mentioning that he doesn't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon. He wants to destroy their ballistic missile program. So now he seems to be focusing on, and the Pentagon is carrying out, along with Israel, attacks on degrading, and they are degrading, Iran's ballistic missile program, the military bases. And in recent days, Marianne, in the last 24 hours, they've actually got drone strikes on street-level posts of the Basij, the volunteer paramilitary militia, which played such a key role in suppressing those protests last month.
And Lise, in a minute or so, how does the US get victory, or where is the exit strategy here for them?
When President Donald Trump, the U.S. commander-in-chief, declares victory, just like last year in the 12-day war, after he attacked Iran's nuclear sites, he said they were obliterated, even though they hadn't been, according to intelligence assessments. Today he said, well, the war is almost over. We can end it any time. So when he's bothered by rising prices at home, political pressure, he may decide it's time to say we've achieved victory. But whether Iran is ready to is another question. It says it will also have a say when this war ends.
OK, our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, as always, you can get more information on the war in Iran on the BBC's website. And also, whether you're joining us on YouTube, on TikTok, on BBC Sounds, on BBC Radio or television, thank you so much for your time. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the Iran War Today.